Catus, Maximus here. Just a quick teardown just to see, look inside the gearbox and plunger mechanism of this DeWalt DCS 312. I wasn't being too critical in my review. I just think they could have done a few things differently. But as I did show in my review, at least one thing it does come through on is having power. So at least it'll make the cut, and that's really the biggest deal, is it does make the cut. We got 10 T10s in here. Quite a few of them actually, and they're so tiny you got to make sure you get right on them. Let me pull these out. Don't forget when you disassemble these that the stickers on many tools like here, and in the handle hold the two halves apart. I should mention they do have a nice detail, which is a spring-loaded contacts there for the battery. That is partially for shock absorption, but it's more to keep the terminals in line with the battery itself, so as this thing's vibrating around, they're not rubbing back and forth, causing excessive wear. That's really what the spring is for, and it is at least a nice attention to detail. The shoe is attached to the gearbox, which of course makes sense. Try to get this thing apart here. I don't think there's a screw under that part. There we go. It's just a really nice tight fit, as it should be around a reciprocating saw. And of course, nylon 30% fiberglass body as usual. The molds certainly are complicated. It takes a huge amount of time for a CNC machine to cut a mold like that because of the tiny little bits that it has to use. And as we can see here, this thing is actually more gearbox than it is motor. I was complaining about the LED, but there's just a big old chunk of space behind it, of course, on both sides of the mold, so it'd be pretty easy to put in just a much more powerful light in here. So it'll be it'll be nice to do that as a little project, even on its own plug. These are, of course, the brushless DC three-phase motor controller, and you can almost see right here the indentations that outlines the three parallel pairs of power transistors, some polymer capacitors, and just one big integrated electronic power unit these days. With details, they do, glue the windings so they don't vibrate. They glue the sensor wire, since this is a censored brushless DC motor. Motors that are used on like aircraft drones don't have sensors on them because they use power, their weight, and they're unnecessary on a motor that's driving a fan, which is what a drone propeller is. And so they always are don't have any need for having a separate positioning system. The reason this does is because these motors can run very slow, and when you're running brushless motors really slow, they sometimes will have a tendency to want to not reverse but to stall, just because they don't know exactly what winding to turn on and off accurately. You only really see that on like remote control cars, and of course on power tools where you may be applying a whole lot of power at very little to 0 RPM. Of course, the whole shoe and everything's all bolted to the gearbox. It is a really pretty tight fit. You can see that already a whole bunch of the expense. What's interesting about these tools is when they're assembled, this little wire right here is plugged in for the light, and I should probably unplug that now. And everything else is done as an assembly, and then is set inside the shell. Now what I don't know is if the motor just wants to pop out of the top of the gearbox. It certainly does. It just slides right out, and then I see there's a guide. So that makes it super simple for assembly, because once it gets to the molds come out, and then these are assembled in a separate stage, and same with these, and they all come together, and somebody's job is literally just to take motors, pop them in the gearbox, pop them in the shell, drive the screws, make sure it runs, and then send it to boxing. Like these little isolators right here, this is definitely a nice touch just to reduce vibration. We can see the fan, they marked as 33% nylon, glass fiber nylon. Versus other details about this motor, I like that it's integrated in many brushless power tools, like the drills, like this impact driver. The actual spinning rotor part, its bearings are actually supported by the primary housing of the tool, and so is the separation, the distancing for the field. And so if it gets really dropped or beat up, it can cause misalignments, and then sometimes you'll have motors sticking. And so I like this because this motor is actually an integrated supported unit. It spins freely, independent of the housing. So I think that's pretty cool. This is like just like a really a low power but high torque drone motor, or I should say RC motor. Actually, a motor like this may work good on an RC, because in an RC you could just take this motor and hook it up to any kind of high power controller and run it till it overheats. They use a sintered gear that's pressed over the main shaft, so it has a pretty small diameter main shaft. I think if you pull the plunger out, then you can just knock out these or T20s and T15s, but you'd take this off first. And I knew we need an impact because wow, that's a pretty long screw. And machine thread, so it was, it had a lot of thread engagement. There we go. And since I don't have the chuck off, I can't actually, I would probably tear this front rubber boot, but I don't need to remove it or disassemble this chuck, because these things are a little bit annoying. I'll do that as a separate video if anybody needs it. And that would be a common thing. So I'll do that as a separate video. So this is just about getting inside this gearbox. There's a lot of expense. We know that because we have these screws protruding from the inside, both from the top and from the bottom side here. So we know that there's separate components that are really separately, that are secured. You have 4 screws holding, excuse me, more than 4. You have 6 screws holding the gearbox, these 4 T15s, and then the 2 that are also acting as the supports for the shoe. So one of the reasons they're so big and long is obviously all the load that the shoe places on it. It is a pretty good securement. I don't think it's too bad at all. So let's knock out these other screws. I do like taking apart even new tools. Let me zoom in some here. This is probably going to be way too much zoom. Oh, but it works. You can see the aluminum's just stripping out on one of the screws. They have to be real careful with that, just because it seems that on these soft materials, if one of their automated torque drivers starts getting out of spec, you don't want to end up with that tool that ends up having some stripped screws, and you want to hand torque these screws when you put them back together. So now we should have, oh, they put a ton of grease in there. And there's the gearbox. Pretty well machined surfaces. They have 2 alignment pegs. I like that a lot. So if you disassemble it, you can reassemble it and it'll be absolutely precision aligned. And so we have the input here. And it's interesting that they have this plate. That must be the wear plate, where this plunger that's going back and forth, this is just what's holding it. And so I like that a lot, because we can tell that what's preventing the plunger from, wearing and wanting to rock back and forth. I've run into some reciprocating saws over the years where it was just terrible, where you just could rock back and forth a huge amount. And what DeWalt has done is they have this counterweight mechanism in it, and secondly, they have this big centered wear plate at the top of that's supporting the top of it. And I think that's pretty wise. That should actually provide some decent life out of this spindle. And it has a pretty decent size front support bearing, and so this whole thing should pop out. We do have a felt seal, so if you're into servicing tools, then this is something you may want to invest in, is ordering a felt seal and replacing it periodically. And we can see this is all one machine piece on the plunger rod, so that's also nice to see. What we can see here is that this is a planetary gearbox, and it's part of the reason it's tall is even though they have a very short and pretty stout motor on it, the tool would have become really long if they would have done a spur gear. So they wanted the motor to go down through the center of the gearbox, essentially, so they could only do that through a planetary, and that sacrifice gave you about an extra 3/4 of an inch to an inch of thickness, or I should say overall tool height. Here we go. We'll take a first look at the plunger bearing, and it is a sintered steel bearing. It would have been nice if they would have included a needle bearing in that. At least there is ball bearings in the motor. And so what they have here is it's actually double secured. So the wear plate uses, 4 screws to hold it into the gearbox, and then there's 3 more screws that actually hold the planetary system itself. So it's really quite a bit of effort was made to making this gearbox really tight and maintain its alignment. That's a big deal about how long mechanical parts will last. Those are pretty tight. And they are also T15s. Tons of different screw sizes in here. And they are greasy. At least they use the nice molybdenum grease. That's why it's dark color, is because it has molybdenum disulfide. I always say that word wrong. How tight is this in here? And what on earth? Oh, there's little lock washers. I couldn't even see what they were. There's tiny little split washers under those screws. Tell you what, you have to be real careful of this grease because it's real easy for it to get just everywhere. If we can get this. The wear plate certainly has a nice fit in there. And there is our wear plate. This is a separate piece, so that would be our, of course, our planet gear. We'll go and actually set, and we can see that the upper bearing, the primary bearing that's taking all the load of the reciprocating, is trapped. It has this panel, or excuse me, this piece of sheet metal on one side of the bearing, and on the other side, it's held. The shaft has an undercut, and there's a snap ring in there. So you'd undo those 3 screws, pull that out, remove the snap ring, and then that's how you could end up replacing the bearing. But it means that this shaft is really, really well held in there, and so that's actually an important attention to detail. And then once again, our 2 little planet gears, like on many impact drivers, well, this new DeWalt uses 3. They could put a touch more grease in here, I think. And if we can get this thing to... There we go. Our ring gear actually sits in there quite nicely, and it's all, of course, all steel. It's a really nice little design. So let's take a look at this counterweight. And to finish the review down, you know, I'm not going to pull the bearing out of this race because the way that they have this designed, I don't think it's press fit, but it's going to be pretty tight in there. It's just the unit, and so I will cut it a little bit short. The same thing on the bottom. They have this plate here. There are 2 screws. To actually get it out, you have to rotate it this one way, rotate it the other, slide it down, do the same thing on the other 2 screws. So I thought that was interesting. But this is really the point of the teardown, is the fact that this does indeed have a separate, independently moving counterweight. So as the plunger goes this way, the counterweight gets pushed backwards, and as the plunger sucks in, the counterweight's pushing forward, and they would just have this this weighted for what would be an average blade weight, which I assume is like a 9-inch blade because they're common blade sizes. I mean, there's 4s, but there's really 6, 9s, and 12s, and so you'd think they just choose the middle ground. That's where it'd be the absolute smoothest. One of the good things about this is it provides much better lateral stability because what they're doing here is they are using, this is a shaft it's a shaft with a bearing on the backside, and it has these machined lobes on it. One of the lobes is what the eccentric pin that actually drives the plunger. It goes through the bearing, through the plunger, and into this second hole here. So as it swings this around, what they've been able to do is counterweight the rotating mechanism itself. So as it comes around the 90 degrees, you don't have like a little bit of an offset weight, and that's why the saw doesn't move sideways, because this is actually really well balanced. And then of course the weight itself is only moving back and forth in tune with the plunger. So it's actually a pretty intelligent design. I can see a lot of the expense that went into this is just all these different parts and actual pretty high tolerance manufacturing and machining in order to make sure it all actually works and is reliable. But I'm actually, you know, I can understand. So that big counterweight obviously added just a huge amount of thickness. So this saw could have been made actually quite a bit shorter and lighter weight. but at the sacrifice of having something that actually, you know, I did admit it was pretty low vibration. This is why, and it's better to deal with it having a counterweight, because that lower vibration just makes the saw a whole lot easier to use, and it's a little bit safer, and obviously just a whole lot less hand numbing. And so actually I approve of this design. Using a planetary gearbox to drive the plunger, that's going to be a pretty long lasting gearbox, because of course you're offsetting the load to two parallel gears at the same time instead of just one gear driving the edge of the other one next to it. There's a little shim washer here. I should point that out for anybody who's watching this video on a repair. Overall, not too bad. The engineering and stuff is actually pretty good. This is something that we could easily translate into a much larger reciprocating saw, like their full-size cordless ones. Just using the very, you know, same idea, same principle. They could have just a spur gear driven reduction, but having this counterweight system. So maybe this will show up in the next generation of reciprocating saws where they were really, truly counterweighted. I should say active counterweighted. So that's pretty cool to see, because for many, many years, DeWalt only very certain specific top-end models are counterweighted. None of them else are. And it's nice to see that at least these 12-volt extremes are. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody who's been watching and subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. Until next time, Catus Maximus out.